Good day, my dear student. Today we're going to talk about Lesson 9, the Global City. So last time we talked about Unit 4, a world of ideas, wherein we talk about this specific topic, the globalization of religion and global media cultures. Now let's proceed to the Unit 5, okay? We're going to talk about the global mobility and population. Under that, we have the global city, the global demography, and global migration. So at the very first topic that we're going to discuss under this unit, okay, lesson 9, the global city. So we're going to talk about first the global city. So for now, so expect that starting from now, okay, we're going to have a short discussion. All right. So now we're going to talk about the global city. So let's proceed to the lesson. The global city. Global city is definition and concepts. Okay? So first we're going to look into its definition, of course, of what global city is. So, as defined, a global city is an urban center that enjoys significant competitive advantage and that serves as a hub within a globalized economic system. So if you're looking into this concept global city, you will notice the word urban center. We're talking about urban because it is closely or synonymous to the word city, urban, compared to a city. Alright, well, the rural-urban differentiation has a significant relationship to globalization. Alright, now, to give you a more clearer understanding what global city is. So, nakalagay dito hub. Okay? Serve as a hub within a globalized economic system. When we say hub, it is a focal point, okay? Or a central of activity. Alright? So, ito kasi, di ba, kapag ka sinabi nating city, okay, nasa syudad tayo, okay, whereas kapag ka rural, nasa kabukiran. Ngayon, sinasabi na, yun nga, since nasa syudad tayo, so yan ay closely connected sa globalization. Alright? Well, the term has its own origins in research on cities carried out during the 1980s. Okay, yung global cities, which examined the common characteristic of the world's most important cities. So, however, with increased attention being paid to processes of globalization during subsequent years, these world cities came to be known as global cities. Now, linked with globalization was the idea of spatial reorganization and the hypothesis that cities were becoming key loci or the main location within global networks of production, finance, and telecommunications. In some formulation of the global city thesis, then such cities are seen as building blocks of globalization. So we're talking about global city. Alright? So what constitutes a global city were primarily economic. So we are basing on the economic status, okay, of a city, that it must be considered to be economically developed, of course, so that we could consider it as global city. But it is not simple as that. So later on, we're going to more look into the definition or more expanded and elaborative explanation with regards to global city. All right. Now, um, well, as such, New York, London, and Tokyo can be identified as global cities, all of which are hubs of global finance and capitalism. So, dito na pumasok yung binanggit na city or country na sinasabi diyan. Okay? So, ayan. Now, this concept of global cities was used to describe these three urban center of New York, London, and Tokyo as economic centers that exert control over the world's political economy. So ito kasing tatlong ito ang masasabi natin, okay, center, okay, over the world's political economy. Now, let's proceed to the next. So mamaya bigyan pa natin ng diin itong tatlong ito. Alright, para mas maging malinaw sa inyo. World cities are categorized as such based on the global reach. O, tandaan nyo yan, global reach, kung gaano kalawag or kalawak, kalawig ang nasasakupan, okay, of this organization na meron itong setting ito. Okay? Not only are there inequalities between the cities, o tandaan nyo rin ito, hindi lang masasabi natin nagkakaroon ng something inequalities between the city, there also exists inequality within each city. Doon mismo sa city na yon, yan, merong ding nangyayaring inequalities doon sa loob, kumbaga hindi lang sa labas. Okay? Na nakukumpara natin sa iba't ibang cities, kundi mismo doon sa city na yon, okay, ay merong something nagkakaroon ng inequalities. Kasi nga, ang tinitingnan natin dito yung population, yung dami ng tao, di ba? So, di ba, kapag mas maunti yung tao, o mas compact, kumbaga, mas solid, alright? Yung pagkakaroon ng pamamalakad. Parang ganun ang idea. Sige, mamaya, bigyan natin ng diin yan, okay? Now, next, alright. Ano ba ang next na nakalagay? Din indicators of a global city. But before we move to the indicators of the global city, di ko pala rin nabasa, Alternatively, these cities can be seen as important nodes in a variety of global networks. So we're talking about globalization, di ba? So ngayon, nire-relate natin itong mga city, okay, sa globalization or global network. So sabi dito, important nodes daw itong mga cities na sinasabi. Pero hindi lang basta city kundi global city. Okay? As important nodes. So when we say nodes, ganun pa rin, ang idea? Central or connecting points siya. Okay? So, ayan. Now, although cities are major beneficiaries of globalizations, they are also the most severely affected by global problems. Therefore, the city faces peculiar political problems wherein it is often fruitlessly seeking to deal locally with global problems and local politics has become overloaded. So, kumbaga, ang idea dahil sila yung mas involved, yung urban or yung city, okay, sa economic system ng isang bansa, kaya more likely sila rin ang mas maapektuhan sa kahinatnan or magiging kahinatnan dulot ng globalization. Okay, di ba? Kung kahit i-connecta natin sa ibang bagay, kapag ka mas dominant or mas marami kang involvement into certain things, ano? So, syempre, ikaw rin ang mas maapektuhan kung yung ginagawa mo, for example, ay something na nagkaroon ng problema. Alright? So, kumbaga yan, kinoconnect natin, ano? Now, next, we have the indicators of a global city. So kapag ka sinabing indicators, masasabi nating ito yung sources na rin, ano, na para masabi nating nagpo-fall ito sa global city. Ngayon, bibigyan natin ng linaw, ano, kung paano natin masasabing global city ang isang city. Okay? So the following are the foremost characteristic of a global city. So, una, seats of economic power. Sige, basahin muna natin, ano? So, ayan. Nakalagay dyan, New York may have the largest stock market in the world. Take note of that. Ang New York daw is said to be having the largest stock market in the world, but Tokyo houses the most number of corporate headquarters. So, 613 company headquarters daw against 217 na headquarters sa New York. Its competitors or yung kanyang kalaban. So, ibig sabihin, di ba, kapag sinabi natin headquarters in Finland or so administrative center of an enterprise. So, kumbaga, dito yung parang pinaka-command center, ano? Kapag sinabi nating headquarters, sila yung, or dito yung parang mismong area wherein yung mga commander, syempre, nagko-command kung anong dapat gawin. And parang ang dating parang narito yung mga president or manager, ano, ng company. Something like that. Yung pinakapuno, ang tinitingnan natin dito. Alright? Ng company or something like that. Ng isang kumpanya or what. Alright? So, ngayon, yun ang pinagkumpara sa New York at saka sa Tokyo. Sabihin na nga natin na mas malaki or pinakamalaki ang stock market ng New York, pero ang Tokyo naman, ang advantage yung number of corporate headquarters. Now, Shanghai may have a smaller stock market, okay, compared to New York and Tokyo. So, kung mapapansin natin dito Shanghai may have a smaller stock market compared to New York and Tokyo, but plays a critical role in the global economic supply chain ever since China has become the manufacturing center of the world. Basahin pa natin. Shanghai as the world busiest container port, moving over 33 million container units in 2013. So, Shanghai, ang nangunguna. So, hindi yan lumpiang Shanghai, Okay. Hindi, pero ito, Shanghai, it is said to be the center or central coast ng China. Yung Shanghai. So, ngayon, ang sinasabi dito sa manufacturing, center of the world, alright, yung China daw has become the manufacturing center of the world. Kaya kung makikita natin, di ba, kung mag-online shopping kayo sa Lazada, sa Shopee, sa Amazon, at kung ano pa man, na mga online shopping na platform, sa internet na makikita natin. Ngayon, ibig ko sabihin, Ako personally, from my own experiences, kapag nag-order ako sa ibang bansa, lagi kong nakikita, kapag overseas, nakalagay diyan yung shipping, nakalagay China. Okay? Kapag overseas, lagi nakalagay China. Now, okay. So, kaya sinasabi diyan, ito talaga yung masasabi natin manufacturing center of the world, yung China. Hindi na ilingid sa ating kaalaman, di ba? So, kaya mapapaisip tayo, ganun pala, kaya pala, nakikita ko kapag umorder ako, kapag overseas, lagi na lang China. Kumbaga, yan talagang pinaka-center, sa buong mundo. When it's come sa shipping, manufacturing, okay, China talaga dyan ang number one. Ngayon, may makikita tayo dito, container port. So, ayan container port. So, ano ba kapag sinabi nating container port? So, kapag sinabing container port or container terminal, it is a facility where a cargo containers, so 'di ba, makikita natin yung cargo containers, siya yung barko, okay, barko na naroon yung mga order, na isi-ship, alright? Yung mga product or mga parcel, yan, naroon sa barko. So, yan, yun ang tinatawag na cargo. Ngayon, itong container port, container terminal is a facility where cargo containers are transshipped between different transport vehicles. Meaning, ang idea, nagkakaroon na ng shipment. Alright, yun yung parang process ng shipment. Yung tinatawag natin na yun nga, yung facility na yon, which is the container port. Okay? So, ayan. So, China talaga, specifically yung city ng Shanghai. Alright? Yan, manufacturing center of the world. Yan. So, I hope clear na yan sa inyo, So, next. We have the center of authority. So, tinitingnan din natin, isa sa indicators ng global city ay center of authority. Sige, basahin na lang muna natin, Washington DC may not be wealthy as New York. Pero part yan ng ng United States, itong dalawa, of course. Pero ito ay different city, of course. But it is the seat of American state power. Alright. Now, ang capital kasi ng United States ay Washington DC, di ba? Okay? May not be wealthy as New York, pero yung New York, mas maraming tao dyan. Sa pagkakaalam natin, Whereas dito sa Washington DC, ito yung capital of the US. Alright. Ang tawag dito, bigla ko lang naalala yung kanina, wait lang. Bigla ko lang naalala. So, itong China, ngayon, sabi dito, 30 million container units in 2013. Ngayon, updated version niya, noong 2019 daw, meron ng 43 million container units, okay, in 2019. Okay, yung Shanghai. Okay, Shanghai City. So, ayun, siningil ko lang. Now, going back sa ating sinasabi dito sa Center of Authority. Nakalagay dito, Washington DC may not be wealthy as New York, but it is the seat of American state power. Okay? Yan kasi ang capital ngayon, Washington DC. People around the world knows its major landmark or landmarks, okay? The White House, okay? So kapag sinabi nating White House, kumbaga equivalent niyan ay Malacanang Palace sa Pilipinas, Pero sa United States, White House ang tawag, wherein dito tumitira yung president o tsaka yung kanyang kapamilya, So, ayan, sa White House. Then, the Capitol Building or yung Kongreso. Alright. So, di ba, related siya sa House of Representative or House of Senate or House of Congress. Yan, di ba, yung Capitol Building. Kung pag-uusapan natin, kung i-connect natin sa Pilipinas. Alright, now, the Supreme Court, the Lincoln, Memorial, okay, the Washington Monument. So, ayan ha, yan, matatagpuan sa Washington DC yan. Okay, so kung aalalahanin lang natin ha, Washington comes from the word George Washington. He was the first president of the United States. Okay? So, ayan, kumbaga, kinonekta ko lang ha. Yan. Now, next na ating basahin dito ha, sentence. Nasa na ba tayo? So, tapos na tayo dito sa monument, ano? So, similarly compared with Sydney. Di ba, Australia ito sa Sydney, Australia. And Melbourne, Canberra. Ang Canberra pala daw, ang sinasabing capital of Australia. Actually, ang isip ko noon parang Sydney, di ba? So, Canberra pala ang sabihin na natin, capital ng Australia. Pero, nakalagay dito, kung kinumpara ang Sydney, so part ito ng Australia, so Sydney, o city siya, no? Ang Canberra daw is a sleepy town and that is not as attractive to tourists. Kasi di ba, kung makikita natin kung bumisita tayo, or kahit makita lang natin yung tourist spot na brochure, okay, ng Australia, makikita natin yung Sydney. Okay, yung Sydney na maganda yung talagang view, ano? Tourist spot ng Australia. Ngayon, but Australia's political capital, it is a home to the country's top politicians, bureaucrats, and policies advisor. So, nariyan yung mga top politician, bureaucrats, and policy advisor ng Australia doon sa Canberra. Okay? So, doon matatagpuan. Kung hanapin mo pinaka top politician, ano? Bureaucrats and policy advisor sa Australia, diyan mo makikita sa Canberra. Whereas yung tourist spot sa Sydney, ano? At saka sa Melbourne. Alright, so ayun, ano? So ayan ay number 2. So sige, next na tayo kagad, ano? Number 3. So ito, ang next na indicators ng global city para masabi natin global city ha. Nakalagay dito, cities that house major international organization may also be considered center of political influence. So we're talking about political influence. The headquarters of the United Nations is in New York. So sa New York pala matatagpuan ano, yung headquarters or pinaka-command center ng United Nations. Okay? So New York pala. And that of the European Union is in Brussels. Yung European Union pala, matatagpuan na headquarter nila sa Brussels. An influential political city near the Philippines is Jakarta. Alright? Which is not just the capital of Indonesia, but also the location of the main headquarter of the Association of Southeast Asian Nation or ASEAN, di ba? Yung ASEAN country. So, kabilang tayo dyan, siyempre. Kabilang tayo sa Asia. So, ibig sabihin, kung makikita natin dito, pinag-uusapan yung political influence. Okay? So, yan. Kung makikita natin, so, yan. Nabasa na naman natin, ha? So, hindi na natin masyado kailangang ipaliwanag pa. So, ibig sabihin, yung Brussels at saka yung New York ay center of political influence. Alright? So, the same as sa Jakarta. Alright. Pagka pinag-usapan natin yung political influence, kasi nga, naroon yung mismong center ng different na well-known organization sa kilala ng buong bansa, no? Of course. So, ayan. Next, nakalagay dito, powerful political hubs exert influence on their own countries as well as on international affairs. The European Central Bank, which oversees the euro, is based in Frankfurt. Okay? So, ayan. So, ngayon, sige, next na tayo. Center of higher learning, and culture. So, pinag-uusapan din pala sa indicators of global city para may turing natin na global city ay tinitingnan natin yung higher learning and culture. So, di ba, sa taas din ng pinag-aaralan, of course, bago sabihin, sa bilang ng mga educated people, okay, sa city na yan, on that particular city. Now, ano nakalagay dito, ano? A city's intellectual influence is seen through the influence of its publishing industry. Okay? So, tinitingnan din daw, ano, aside from, di ba, intellectual influence, so makikita natin sa intellectual influence, yung influence rin ng publishing industry. So, many of the books that people read are published in places like New York, London, or Paris. The New York Times carries the name of New York City, but it is far from being a local newspaper. But the thing is, people read it not just across America. Okay, yung New York Times, okay, yung tinatawag na the New York Times, yung sabihin na natin na newspaper siya, okay, na pinablish sa New York. Okay? So, ayan, London or Paris. So, 'di ba? The idea is sa sinasabi, people read it not just across America, but also all over the world. Okay? So, 'di ba? Kahit sa ating bansa, merong nakalagay na mga magazine, newspaper, nakalagay na may nakatatak, New York Times. So, yun pala, yan ay balita sa ibang bansa, of course. Yun pala, nakakarating siya kahit sa iba't ibang bansa, di ba? So, talagang kahit newspaper, so makikita natin dyan, okay, yung parang paglawig, okay? So, papasok sa globalization. So, yun ang sinasabi natin dyan. Alright, now, one of the reason for many tourists visiting Boston, okay, so city rin siya ha, na part ng United States, Massachusetts, okay, is that they want to see Harvard University. So, the world's top university. So, hindi naman lingid sa ating kaalaman na ang Harvard University ang pinaka-top na school or university, ano, in the world. So, kabilang dyan or inline sa mga Stanford University, okay, ang mga ganyan, di ba? So, pero ang pinakakilala dyan, di ba, yung Harvard University, yun daw ang pinaka-top na universidad sa buong mundo. Kaya kung bakit yung iba, maraming turista na bumibisita sa US, specifically sa Massachusetts, okay, sa Boston, ano, so para bisitahin yung Harvard University. Kaya nga, yun nga, tinitingnan natin dito yung Center of Higher Learning and Culture. Now, many Asian teenagers are moving to cities in Australia because of the leading language universities there. So, may iba, or maraming mga teenagers daw, yung iba, di ba? Merong parang nagkakaroon ng, tawag doon, yung nagsuswitch ng student or nagpapalit sa ibang bansa. Parang ganon, ano? So, in which, yung tawag dito, yung Australia daw, leading language university. Okay, kaya kung bakit yung ibang Asian teenagers or maraming Asian teenagers ay lumilipat sa Australia para sabihin na natin mag-aral, ano, specifically ng mga language, of course. Yan, doon daw ang pinaka-center. Ngayon, speaking of language, ang Japan daw, actually, yung pag-aaral ng English sa Japan ay, base doon sa akin na panood ha, ano siya, vlogger. Ngayon, nasa Japan siya, ay Pilipino siya, pero doon na siya nanirahan, doon na siya naging citizens. Pero bata pa lang siya actually, ano? Pero yun nga, ang sabi niya, okay, ay doon daw sa Japan, yung way ng pag-aaral ng English language ay hindi ganong ka-advanced kumpara sa Pilipinas. Alam naman natin, ang Pilipinas hindi naman masyadong kagalingan, ano? Okay, hindi naman sa binabagsak ko ang bansang pinanggalingan ko, ay hindi naman kagalingan when it's come to education. Kumpara dun sa mga, syempre, sa mga US, yan, mga gayan. So, ayan. Kung titingnan ko nga, no, ang Philippines daw, ay isa sa parang nasa top, hindi pala top, ano, kumbaga nasa bottom na pinakamahina daw, ano, or pinaka hindi educated. Okay, something like that. Kaya parang pinakamahina daw ang IQ, mga ganun. Nakita ko dun sa statistic mismo yan. Alright? So, anyway, pero depende naman yan sa tao, ha? Okay, depende yan sa Pilipino. So, kumbaga generalization lang yan kasi nga kulang sa education. Okay? So, sige, ito na naman. I-relate ko na naman sa totoong buhay. Kaya kung mapapansin ko, ha, sa ating bansang ito sa Pilipinas, nakikita ko yung parang pagmamanage, ano, ng ating country ng mga government official. Ngayon, personally, ha, so in my own opinion, nakikita ko yung mga incompetency. Okay, hindi ibig sabihin dahil gusto lang nila mangurap or gusto nilang angkinin yung kapangyarihan. It is because, in my opinion, it is because dahil incompetent sila or sabihin na natin wala silang gaanong skill and knowledge para panghawakan yung certain position na yun para mas maganda. Sang-ayon sa kung ano yung dapat, tama. Alright? So, pero syempre, mahirap din naman na tumayo dun sa ganong posisyon. Pero, masasabi ko dyan, sa mga nasa posisyon, syempre, bago dapat pumunta dyan, or bago ka, sabihin na natin, mag-manage ng government system na sinasabi, okay, sa pangkalahatan, sa Pilipinas, ay di, syempre, dapat may mga, hindi lang basta degree, kundi experiences, okay? Sabi nga nung iba, hindi lang basta experiences na sinasabi ko. Sabi nga nung iba, for example, bago ka dapat daw, for example, pumasok sa pagiging presidente, dapat meron kang mga hindi lang 10 years, 15 years, kundi napakatagal na serbisyo, no? Something like that. So, judicial, ano ba nga ba yun? So, yun, iba't iba, So, kumbaga, daanan mo muna yung lahat, parang ganun ng ilang years, para talagang masasabing competent ka, no? When it comes to knowledge, knowledge based yung sinasabi natin. So, ayun. So, mahabang usapin yan, actually. So, sige, wag na natin masyadong diinan pa. So, kumbaga, naisingit lang natin, ha? So, yung about sa education system ng ating bansa. So, ayun. Now, going back, kaya mahalaga, my dear student, na kayo ngayon ay pinagpapatuloy nyo yung pag-aaral. So, hindi nyo iniwawaglit, yung pagkakataon na ngayon ay nakakapag-aral tayo, opportunity na nakakapag-aral kahit na online class. So, ako nga particularly, okay, I try my best para talagang makapag-provide ng information na kailangan nyo na magagamit nyo, hindi lamang sa loob ng classroom, maging sa labas ng classroom. So, yan ang sinasabi natin dito, quality education talaga. Alright, anyway, sige, going back. Baka mapatagal tayo dyan. Yun na nga, So, going back dun sa sinasabi ko, so, diba, sabi ko kanina, yung Japan daw, when it comes to language, pagtuturo ng language, ay very basic, parang ganun, di ba? Pero, di ba, alam naman natin, when it comes to economy, so ang Japan is sa top. Okay? So, pero when it comes to language, yan, mahina ang Japan dyan. Yun lang. Yun lang parang nakikita ko, ha? Kaya, yan, parang kung mapapansin nyo, kalimitan sa mga Hapon ay hirap magsalita ng ibang language maliban doon sa kanilang kinagisnan na Japanese, of course. Now, next na ating masasabi? Well, Los Angeles, the center of the American film, alright, industry may also be considered a global city. Okay? So, ayan. Also, a less obvious example, however, is Copenhagen. It is a city. It is the capital of Denmark. It is also so small that one can tour the entire city by bicycle in 30 minutes. Alright? So it is not the home of a major stock market, and its population is rather homogeneous. But the thing is, sinasabi natin, capital ng Denmark yung Copenhagen at maliit lamang yung na city na pwede mo siyang malibot gamit ang bicycle lamang in just 30 minutes. But the thing is, Copenhagen is now considered as one of the culinary capital of the world, with its top restaurant incommensurate with its size. So, hindi mo i-imagine na, liit-liit ng city ito. Pero ito pala yung top na restaurant in the world. Or, ibig sabihin, top culinary capital or culinary capitals of the world. Ano masasabi? Okay, in compare to that, sa Copenhagen, iba namang country, So, Manchester, England, in the 1980s was dreary or yung parang dull, walang buhay, industrial city. But many prominent post-punk and new wave bands, Joy Division, The Smith, The Happy Mondays, hailed from the city, making its global household name. Meaning, bagaman itong Manchester, England, ay sabing, yung kanyang industry ay something dull. Pero when it comes to band, yung mga, sabihin na natin, mga banda, ng mga kumakanta, of course. So, yung palang center, sa Manchester, England. Alright? Now, ayan, so binasa na natin yung kanina. So, yung kanina, yung Los Angeles, the center of the American film industry, may also be considered a global city. Now, next, nakalagay dito, basahin natin. In Southeast Asia, Singapore is slowly becoming a cultural hub for the region. It is now houses some of the region's top television station and news organization, MTV. Okay? Southeast Asia and Channel News Asia. So, sa pagkakaalam ko, MTV. Pero ibang MTV yan, ha? So, parang naisip ko kasi yung music TV. 'Di ba? Nung panahong nung bata-bata pa rin ako, merong channel kasi sa TV na MTV na puro na lang walang tigil na music. Parang ganon. So, pero I think ibang sinasabi dito na MTV. Okay? So, kasi it talks about news organization, So, ayan. Its various art galleries and cinemas also shows paintings from artists and filmmakers, respectively from the Philippines and Thailand. So, ayun Singapore. Now, sige, next na tayo kaagad. Economic opportunities. Ito, bigyan ko ng konting emphasis ang economic opportunities. Well, economic opportunities in a global city make it attractive to talents from across the world. So, since 1970s, many of the top IT programmers and engineers from Asia have moved to San Francisco Bay Area to become some of the key figures in Silicon Valley technologies boom. So, London remains a preferred destination for many Filipinos with a nursing degree. So, yun daw, So, sang-ayon sa nakalagay. So, London daw remains a preferred destination for many Filipinos with nursing degrees. Pero to be honest, wala akong masyadong background dito, I mean, Well, yun na nakalagay eh. London daw. So, iba kasi ang country na naisip ko when it comes to nursing degree ng merong OFW ng mga Pilipino na nagpupunta. Okay, pero London daw pala, remains a preferred destination for many Filipinos with nursing degree. Ngayon, speaking of economic opportunities, maire-relate ko kahit wala nakalagay sa module, yung experience ng ating kababayan na si Wesley So. So, di ba, si Wesley So ay one of the top chess player in the world nowadays, So, nasa top 10 siya, if I'm not mistaken. Kasi naabot niya yung 2,800 na rating. Pero, sige, wag na natin pag-usapan yung mga rating na yan. Pero yung top na sinasabi natin, ibig ko sabihin, nung siya'y bata kasi, siyempre, bata pa lang, maliit pa lamang. So, para naman maging master ka sa isang bagay, edi maliit ka pa lang ay nag-aaral ka na ng about dito. Ang sinasabi ko, di ba, sa Pilipinas, parang kukunti yung opportunity ng mga, for example, sa sport, particularly sa chess. Ngayon, nakitaan niya yung pagkukulang ng Pilipinas kasi lack of support, okay, di ba, iba-iba mga support, moral support, financial support, okay, mga ganon, tsaka syempre yung mismong support ng knowledge, yan. So, yun ang nakulangan, syempre, nakulangan siya sa Pilipinas, kaya bata pa lamang, ay nag-move siya sa US para doon mag-train. At yun nga, surprisingly, doon siya gumaling talaga. Kasi naroon talaga yung center, para gumaling. Okay? So, sa ibang bansa. Kumpara dito sa Pilipinas, parang, ewan ko lang, So, hindi naman sa pinapulaan ko ng ating sariling bansa, Pero, yun nga, nakikita ko, ay kakulangan talaga ng support ng gobyerno sa iba't ibang larangan. Kabilang na nga dyan yung mga sport, okay, na sinasabi natin. Pero when it comes to basketball, at least nakikitaan ko naman, kahit paano, yung sabihin na natin pag-support ng Philippines, sa basketball. Pero ibig ko sabihin dun sa ibang mga sport, na lalo na kapag ka nakikitaan mo yung isang bata, na nag-excel sa ganun, ay napipilitan tuloy na mag-move sa ibang country. So, parang ganun, So, may papasok natin yun sa economic opportunities. Alright? So, based yan na rin sa aking knowledge. Okay? So, yan. Anyway, so, sige. Economic opportunities. So, okay na tayo dyan, ha? So, sa economic opportunities. Now, if we go back to the center of learning or higher learning and culture dun sa kanina, may dagdag ko lang dun sa about sa panghuli natin na sinabi, okay, yung about sa filmmakers na nakalagay na its various art galleries and cinemas also show paintings from artists and filmmakers respectively from the Philippines and Thailand. So, it is in fact sometimes easier to watch the movie of a Filipino indie filmmaker in Singapore than it is in Manila. Okay? So, ayan, dinagdag ko lang dito. So, sige. Next na tayo, number 6. And the last indicator ng global city. If I'm not mistaken, ito yata last, So, sige, basahin muna natin, The Economist Intelligence Unit has added other criteria like market size, purchasing power of citizens, size of the middle class, and potential for growth. So, tinitingnan natin dito yung kalawigan ng market, Then, purchasing power, yung opportunity ng mga tao para bumili. Of course, siyempre, tinitingnan natin din yan yung economic status, So, kung mahirap na bansa. So, sa ngayon, sa kasalukuyan, so, taghirap, di ba? Lalo na ngayon, particularly sa atin, mga Pilipino, yung iba, wala na nga ng trabaho, so hindi na makabili ng pantustos sa pang-araw-araw, ng pagkain, ng maayos, di ba? Ganun. So, size of the middle class, yung kung gaano karaming middle class na tao. Okay, yung medyo mayaman na, no? Napagbilang dyan sa middle class. Pero 'di ba tayo ay nasa income, low low middle income class, ano? Yan. So, malapit na sa low income. And potential for growth. Based on this criteria, tiny Singapore is considered Asia's most competitive city. Okay? So, kahit nasabihin na natin tiny daw, ano? Ay sinasabi na considered Asia most competitive city because of its strong market. Alright? Efficient and incorruptible government and livability. Sabihin mo yun, parang ang tibay-tibay ng kanilang government system plus strong market. Yan, no? So, sige. Anyway, huwag na natin masyadong bigyan ng comment. Ano? Kasi politika. So, mahirap na kapag politika. No? Now, it also houses the regional offices of many major global corporation. Itong sinasabi natin na economic competitiveness dito sa Asia. I mean, particularly dito sa Singapore. Ngayon, nakalagay pala dito, no? So, kung mapapansin natin, so tandaan nyo based on this criteria, tiny Singapore, o yung Singapore mismo, is considered Asia's most competitive city. Ayan, most competitive city ng Asia is Singapore. Ayan, tandaan nyo yan baka mapasama sa exam. Alright, so now, next. Siguro nasa last na portion na tayo Ito na, sabi ko nga madali lang tayo. Sabi ko, ang isip ko, less than 50 minutes. Pero baka lampas tayo ng content lang ng 50 minutes. Pero sige, ito, basahin lang natin ito at bigyan natin ng konting paliwanag lang. So, cities as engines of globalization. In the current generation, urban life has become the dominant form of human life throughout the world. Okay? So, cities is said to be, so tandaan nyo so cities are the engines of globalization. They are social magnets growing faster and faster. Now, an increasing number of large cities with population of over 5 millions are already identified as global cities. Cities that are nodes or the central point of global as much as national networks. So yun pala, kapag consider na 5 million na yung population sa city hindi buong bansa, okay, or hindi buong lugar, okay, ang sinasabi lang natin dito, city. Okay, baka kasi malito yung iba, no? So, ngayon, kapag daw 5 million na, ang tao sa city na yon is consider global cities na rin. Okay? Ngayon, kung i-connecta natin sa ating bansa. For example, Batangas City. So, city yung pinag-uusapan natin diyan So, sa Batangas City, it is said to be 329,000 daw ang population as of 2015 ng Batangas City. Alright? So, ang layo nun. Siyempre naman. Kumbaga, para makita lang natin yung statistic or yung parang pagkukumpara. Now, whereas, sige, pagkamalakihan, or pinakamalaki, isa sa pinakamalaki sa Pilipinas is yung Manila. So, ang Manila City, merong 1.78 million. Pero hindi pa rin siya kabilang sa global city kasi hindi pa rin siya pumatak sa 5 million. Dahil 1.78 million lamang as of 2015. Ngayon, ang Metro Manila, okay? Sinasabi natin Metro Manila yung part ng Metro Manila, or halos buong Manila na, okay? Ay nasa 14 million. Okay? Pero sabi ko nga, we talk about city hindi yung syudad mismo na buong buo. Okay? Yan. Now, In 2000, there were 18 megacity. Ito pala, megacity, 10 million. Okay, ito na yung malakihan ha. Mumbai, pagkakalam ko Mumbai, India. Sa India to, ano? Center of India. Tokyo, ito sa Japan. New York, sa US. Newark. Parang hindi ako masyado familiar sa Newark. And Mexico City had population in excess of 10 million inhabitants. Biruin mo yun. So, lampas pa sa 10 million. Ibig sabihin, so, bukod sa megacity, lampas pa. No? So, Greater Tokyo already has 35 million. Okay? So, ito yung basis sa, hindi ko alam kung gaano ka-updated itong nakalagay sa module na ito. 35 million daw nakalagay 35 million sa Tokyo. Yung city na yon, ano? Tokyo City. Hong Kong, Guangzhou area. Wow, 120 million. Ang dami naman, ano? Pero consider yan na city, ha? Okay. So, anyway. Next. Next na tayo. So, basahin natin, ha? The social magnetism of these urban areas is generating larger and denser metropolitan communities. So, when we say metropolitan, city mismo, to the point that they are joining together to become regional conurbation. When we say conurbation, continuous network of urban communities. Sige, in 1900, 5% of the world population was urban. So kung imagine natin, di ba, ang tawag dito, 1900 daw, nung taong 1900, 5% of the world population was urban. Meaning, puro bukid. Nung taong 1900, ibig sabihin, puro bukid pa ang mga lugar sa atin. Ano? Hindi lang sa atin, kundi sa buong bansa. 5% lang doon ang masasabi natin na urban. Yan, yung may mga city. Kaya nga, kung mapapansin natin, di ba, yung mga invention ng mga sasakyan, 1950s yan, mga ganun, di ba? So, ayan. So, part yan ng advancement, of technology under ng globalization. So, ayun pala, ang statistic, 5% lang daw ng world population was urban during that time, noong 1900. Meaning, puro bukid. Kaya nga, kung makikikwento kayo sa inyong mga lolo at lolo, ay sasabihin nila, nung panahon nila, pero yung panahon nila, siguro mga 1940s, 1950, something like that, Okay? So, pero, sakop pa rin sila ng puro bukid or puro mga halaman, puro puno, ang kanilang kabahayan. I mean, hindi sa loob ng bahay, ha? Ibig sabihin na sa labas ng bahay. Or napapaligiran sila ng mga ganun, di ba? Kaya na sinasabi natin. Now, in 2007, the count passed 50%. Kung naging 50% na, half-half na. Pero kaya nga, kung makikita natin, merong different part or regions ng ating bansa. Hindi lang na bansa ng ating daigdig na totally talagang parang forest, di ba? So, hindi naninirahan ng mga tao doon. Siyempre. So, basta malayo. Malayo siya, Malayo sa mga tao. So, pero, actually, meron din mga something undiscovered na places. So, kabilang na yun, Kaya 50% pa rin, kahit na masasabi natin na, ang dami-dami na namang, sasakyan, dami-daming mga kung ano, or sabihin na natin talagang civilized na yung ating bansa, pero kung tayo lilibot sa ibang bansa, ibang region, meron tayong dami pa rin palang makikita natin na mga parang pinamamahayan ng mga forest, okay? Ng halaman ng puno, yan. Now, by 2050, up to 75% is anticipated. Ito naman ay talagang parang theoretical lang or parang hinuhulaan lang sa 2050 daw, 75%. Pero alam nyo, kung ating babalikan, di ba, ang mga pagnanais ng mga tao, pag daw in the future, nalipad na daw yung kotse. Pero ano nangyari ngayon? Okay, anyway, sige, huwag na natin masyadong bagitin yan. Patagal tayo. Next, urban growth is faster outside the Western world. So, yun pala, outside the Western world, mas mabilis daw ang pag-usbong ng city. Fastest in the poorest areas such as Africa and the poorer parts of Asia, producing the most serious problem, which, as the processes of globalization also progresses, will cease to be African and Asian problems and will become global problems. Pero kung alam nyo, makikita natin sa mga African country, di ba? Mahirap na nga. Okay. Sabi ko nga, isa sa dahilan kung bakit naghihirap ang tao or isang bansa, it is because of lack of education. Okay? So, ayun lang. Sige, wag na natin paliwanag. Nasabi ko na yun in our previous lesson. Anyway, movement into cities increases political voice and participations as previously isolated rural population become player on city, street, on the internet, and migration. Then speaking of education lang ha, bigla ko lang nabalikan. 'Di ba yung iba, pagka tumaas na yung pinag-aralan, kaya yung iba makikita natin sa mga government official, ano taas ng pinag-aralan, top notcher pa nga kalimitan ano. Yung iba doon, for example, hindi, una ako magbanggit ng pangalan ano. So, hindi maganda na magbanggit ng pangalan. Ibig ko sabihin, minsan or kalimitan kapag mataas ang pinag-aralan, parang nagte-take advantage ka no, sa mga taong mababa ang pinag-aralan para sabihin na natin i-manipulate mo sila. Parang ganun, di ba? Kaya yung iba nagiging corrupt, alright? So, pero halata naman sa kanila, no, pagiging corrupt. So, sige, yun lang, masasabi natin. Baka mapapolitiko pa na naman tayo dito. Okay, now, as the pace of growth accelerates, the distinguishing cultural features of established historical cities become diluted. So, parang idea sa paglobo ng population, parang ganun, di ba? The distinguishing cultural features of established historical city become diluted. Humihina yung parang ating kultura. Okay? Kasi nga, padami ng tao, di ba? Parang ganun ang idea dito, no? Yung ating mga cultural or historical natin, for example, bilang Pilipino. So, ayun. Wala na masyadong paliwanag dito na kailangan. Next, we have established institutional forms of governance and services do not work with larger numbers. Okay. So, ayun na nga, no? Di ba? In the past, cities work differently in culturally different parts of the world and experience different problems. Now, institutional innovation is failing to keep up with the rate of growth and change, and the problems confronting urban population depend more on size yan ha, and the rate of growth than on cultural expectation. So, yun na yung pinaka-focus ngayon natin, ano? Yung parang paglobo ng population. Okay? Kasi nasasapawan yan ng cultural or historical na kinagis na natin. Cultural features kung ano man. Kasi, sabi ko nga, sa pagdami ng tao, sa paglobo ng population, parang hindi na nasasalang-alang yung mga cultural practices, ano? Yan, ng isang lugar. So, something like that, ano, yun ang ating parang binibigyan ng diin. Alright? So, ayan. Now, ayan. So, ayan, dyan na pala nagtatapos ang ating discussion, ano, on that particular topic under ng Unit 5, the global mobility and population. So, natapos na tayo dun sa unang lesson. We have the global city. So, I hope you learned something new from this lesson. Actually, talagang nafe-feel ko na may natutunan kayo na marami dito, ano? So, parang ganun. So, something interesting din palang i-discuss ito, no? So, global city. It talks about na rin yung global population. Alright? So, ayun. Now, so salamat sa inyong pakikinig. my dear student, at saka sa iba pa nating tagapakinig. So, like what I said, I hope you learned something new from this lesson. So, thank you for listening. God bless and have a nice day. So, next meeting, next week, so we're going to continue our discussion. So, global demography, if I'm not mistaken, yun ang ating next na i-discuss. So, once again, have a nice day and God bless.